I'm in a mastermind with Russell Brunson and going through his content. And if you haven't read it yet, you've got to pick up Expert Secrets. I don't know what I did with my copy, but the cover looks like this. And you should definitely have a copy of this book. Oh, it's right here. You should definitely have a copy of this book. Mine's all dog-eared and picked through and has a ton of notes in it. And I've reached the point in Russell's content where he says I should share my origin story. And this has been really hard. In fact, it's been really difficult to figure out how to share the entrepreneurial personality type, how to apply this content to Russell's framework, because this isn't content that I ever set out to sell. It's not stuff that I ever set out to monetize. Russell says you can always tell who's going to win or lose in business by those who love the marketing. Well, I love marketing this so much. For years, we put it in front of like 100,000 people, but we haven't figured out how to monetize it. And there's a reason. This is about me, but I think it's also about you. As a kid, I struggled in school. I was so different than the other kids. I was so separated from what I thought success was that I didn't even know there was a system there I could access for help. The only time I really did well was when I got along with a teacher, and that didn't happen very often. So as a kid, I didn't know where to turn. So I started reading obsessively and looking at what creates success. And maybe like you, I started reading some self-help books. And what happened was, by the time I got to like the 10th book had almost completely negated the first, and they started arguing with each other. And so instead, I just started obsessively studying successful people. And I'll tell you, you look at 100 successful people and their stories look different. They look separate. They look unique. But you look at hundreds of successful people, you obsess over thousands of successful stories, you start seeing these clear patterns of success. And I read so much. That was my release when I was younger. That was my escape. That was my relief, was reading the stories of entrepreneurs. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I knew a lot about business, and by reading about these people, what I realized was, I thought I was so separate from success because I was the behavioral disorder. I had a hard time in school. I didn't get along with a lot of people. I didn't understand the systems in the world. And you read about enough successful people and you see that they're just like that. And the more I read about success, the more it looked like me, and it gave me some confidence. And there was this place I found called business that meant the world to me, because as soon as I saw businesses, as soon as I understand how business worked, I felt like that was a place where I could actually be successful. So I started businesses my whole life. And when I was 21 years old, I had already had a few. I got into a very fortunate meeting and became a Fortune 500 consultant. I started working with Fuji digital cameras, SanDisk memory, Fuji media. My first 3 clients were groundbreaking, earth-shattering technologies that changed the entire world. And in my 20s, I could help businesses grow. The guy that I worked with and I, Richard Thal, we put SanDisk product, the first flash memory, into stores. We helped planogram the digital camera revolution. We helped expand that market both nationally and internationally. It was amazing because by the time I was in my 20s, I had read enough to help almost any business grow. But here's the problem. Sometimes the entrepreneurs in those businesses weren't ready for the growth. Sometimes the business wasn't ready for the growth. Sometimes what would happen is we get the big order from Walmart or from Radio Shack or from Home Shopping Network. We'd get the big international order, and then the next thing you know, a company would go out of business. And there were so many reasons. But here's my belief. When a business is ready to grow and it doesn't, it's because the entrepreneur is just not ready. And so this question that had been my obsession my whole life, how do you make business grow, had been answered, and I could help people grow business, but the problem was they were growing right out of business. And so I kept reading and studying and trying to understand better what was it that makes people grow. And this has been an obsession of mine for my whole life. And I think it's because I wanted to know how to grow myself. And here's what I found. A few years ago, I sat down to write my life's work, a book called Constructive Company, a book about how to grow people and how to grow business. Because when you do both, companies explode. I've proven it throughout my life. Katie and I put a company number 21 on the Inc. 500 list, and we were voted best places to work every single year we had that company, because when a company's growing, people are growing, and they love it. And then I got to the part of the book proposal for Constructive Company where you describe your market. And I started describing entrepreneurs, and I couldn't stop. And what was supposed to be a 200-word section of a book proposal quickly grew to over 20,000 words. And in describing entrepreneurs, in describing the successful people throughout history that I've obsessed about, in describing all the amazing people that write books like these, in trying to put a definition to entrepreneur, I realized, almost like an epiphany, like a lightning strike, it was like a religious experience when I realized that all of these people throughout history that I've obsessed over, all of these people throughout history that I related so well to, we were all the same. We look different. We might accomplish things differently. But what binds us all together is our entrepreneurial personality type. And when I discovered the entrepreneurial personality type, it was amazing, because it was like the Rosetta Stone to share with entrepreneurs and show them how they think and how they can create unlimited momentum, and how you can grow with your business regardless of how much momentum you build, because that is always the goal. But the most important part of discovering the entrepreneurial personality type is that my entire life growing up, I was different enough that I felt isolated, alone, like a party of one. And when I sat down to define entrepreneur, I realized that everyone in history who I remember, everyone who matters to be remembered, everyone who has ever gotten up one morning and envisioned a better future and demanded it become real, is just like you and I. And in trying to help people grow, the person I grew the most was myself. That's my origin story. Let me know what you think. Give me a comment below and let me know if you'd want to hear more. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening to episode 1 of the Entrepreneurial Personality Type podcast. As you could hear, I'm recording these live on Facebook after about 3 days of staring at a microphone, trying to make these engaging. I realized if I just went live, they would be that much better. So not a lot of production, not a lot of intros and outros, just you, me, and the entrepreneurial personality type. Do me a favor, before you listen to episode 2, if you could subscribe to this podcast, I would appreciate it. We're trying to get as many subscribers as we can, push up our rankings, and find more entrepreneurial personality types so that every one of us can understand there's nothing wrong with you, and you are not alone.